Hello everyone, this is Torin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular game, I'm going to be playing the Empire, and I'm going to be facing off against a Greenskin opponent. So, like my other match you guys saw the other day, this is indeed the Crusade army composition. So I have a bunch of Flagellants, I have a Lex Lecter, that's actually the new nickname for him, that's actually the Warrior Priest, but Lex is over here somewhere, so kind of looks like him. So I have this whole front line of Flagellants, definitely fun, and against the Greenskins, they actually don't do terribly against Biggins and Savage Orcs. It's, you know, a relatively brutal exchange. They both suffer a lot of casualties, but in this matchup, they're not terrible from what I found, unless, of course, they have a lot of missile pressure, or, like my opponent has, Doomdiver catapults are pretty good at gunning these guys down. So I have a front line of those guys, and I did bring the Tattersouls, who I've actually become quite a big fan of, and I've actually been incorporating them into my more competitive builds, and it hasn't been half bad, guys. With that 43 melee strength and 37 charge bonus and 36 weapon strength, they're actually a force to be reckoned with. I have a secondary line of greatswords. These guys are essentially just there to deal with black orcs, and you know, in those situations, you know, if he has Grimgor or Ironhide, for example, you are going to need some armor piercing. So I just brought two groups of those, and I figured that would be enough in conjunction with this Bright Wizard. So then I have Lex Lecter, I have the Warrior Priest for the perpetual buff, so I should be able to effectively cycle Lex Lecter as well as the Warrior Priest, and then have that constant damage resistance up on all of my forces. And then with Lex over here, he can provide the Hammer of Sigmar as well to that front line. The Warrior Priest is pretty good. The Bright Wizard here, he synergizes extremely well with the Knights of the Blazing Sun. If you guys see here, these guys do fire damage, so they gain the benefit of the Kindle Flame with even without the Flaming Sword of Ruin. So a very, very strong synergy there, guys. And then over here, I actually decided to have a little bit of fun this game and also bring the Sterling's Revenge, the Free Company Militia Regiment of Renown. And I've been having some decent success with them. They're a very, very awesome unit. And unlike the traditional Free Company Militia, they do have stock. So they can essentially creep through open field and get into an ideal position without being spotted in many circumstances. So again, the Crusade has finished the Vampire Counts, has vanquished the foul Vlad von Karstein, and is here to hopefully deal with Grimgor and his Greenskin crew. So my opponent has a mixture of Orc Biggins and Savage Orcs, which is a pretty decent front line against the Empire, because most Empire infantry, aside from greatswords, are fairly low armored, so they're susceptible to these high damage shock combat troops. So I'm really going to need to effectively use my cav to run these guys over. He does have 3 Doomdiver catapults, so that really stressed me out. I was kind of when I did see him, I had a feeling my Flagellants were in for a rough time. So we'll see how that goes, guys. And then he has 2 groups of Black Orcs, which will match up pretty well against my my greatswords back there, and then he has the Black Orc himself, as well as an Orc Shaman for the Big Wah. And then, last but not least, he does have some Goblin Wolf Riders out there in the wing. So, without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So this was definitely a very good situation for me on this map, because as you guys can see, I had this entire forest to use as cover. So his Doomdiver catapults, in many ways, their intrinsic value was nullified, because I can now maneuver my cav up and around and take this wide route, and not only that, but I have such an ideal situation here, because I can come down here and then have cover all the way through this forest and get right up on his flank with my cav and start to pressure him. So if I'm able to pressure this flank here and hopefully draw the fire of those, that's when I'll advance my main army. So there is a bit of waiting this game, so I'm going to go ahead and advance, because both of us are kind of turtling in our position, and you know, I didn't want to run out right away into that fire without setting up my cav first. So I am moving the Sterling's Revenge around the wings. They do have the stalk ability, so my opponent can't see these movements. So what I wanted to do was use them as bait against some of his infantry here, and then have my cav, who snuck through the forest back here, just ride down whatever infantry he sent out. So at the same time, you can see he does send some Biggins and Savage Orcs and some other guys over here, and I do move the Sterling's Revenge, who have now been exposed, and my opponent can't see them. I also did pull Lex Lecter over here, so he is in here with the Knights of the Blazing Sun and also that Empire Captain. So I have a big investment here, and you can see Lex, I think he's actually running. He's running around somewhere. I knew I sent him over, but maybe he's already there. So you can see the Sterling's Revenge getting in position. These guys are so cool looking. And they're going to hopefully take some pot shots at these Biggins here, who are now just coming into range. So this should be a pretty good situation. So you can see they get some shots off, but their armor-piercing missiles aren't going to be that pertinent against the Biggins, who only have 50 armor. They do some HP damage, but unfortunately for them, they do fall victim to the Doomdiver catapults, who are just going to absolutely crush these guys. So the Doomdivers are accurate, and these guys are the juicy, low-armored targets that those Doomdiver catapults are always looking for. So I take a decent amount of shock damage there, and I just have to run back into the tree line. I was hoping he would over-pursue and come out here and be baited into these Knights of the Blazing Sun, who were hidden here for a while, but very patient, very well played on my opponent's part. He just repositions those Doomdiver catapults, and yeah, very well played. So I do have Arc Lecter, Lex Lecter over here. He's coming over, but he is on the Barded Steed, which only gives him 58 run speed. So it's quite a bit slower than the traditional mount. And in retrospect, I was definitely bumming about this because you can see he's having to matrix some of those Doom Diver catapults over there. So I do send the Empire Captain as well as Lex Lecter in here, and they're going to get in here and just charge these guys. And what I wanted to do is just have the Empire Captain take all of the shock from these guys. So he'll get in here and do a little bit of damage. And on that same note, the Knights of the Blazing Sun, you can see most of his forces immediately path and they clump on that Empire Captain, which is very, very common, guys. It's something I've seen a lot. And then you can see the Stampede is coming, so hopefully we'll get a nice scenic view of some Greenskins flying, but not as much of a knockback effect as I'd like. But regardless, I still do have Lex Lecter, the Warrior Priest. He's providing the Grand Soulfire, the Hammer of Sigmar, and just look at the decimation these troops are suffering. They're both just wavering already and just essentially have been completely dumpstered. Those Orc Biggins are broken and routing. These guys are wavering, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun will easily be able to just kind of chase these guys off. So the Grand Hammer, Grand Shield of Faith also giving that damage resistance. So I suffer almost no damage, maybe just 10% here and maybe 20% here. So on the same time, I do get the Sterling's Revenge in position to shoot into the forest, so they should ideally provide some nice support to some of these lingering troops. And he did pull his Black Orcs over here, so it's a pretty nice situation, actually. These Sterling's Revenge guys are taking pot shots at these guys. They do have the armor-piercing missiles, and then the Knights of the Blazing Sun are able to cycle in, charge them, and do some pretty good work. So overall, this engagement was going quite well for me, and it was drawing the fire of those Doom Diver catapults. At the same time, guys, my Flagellant force is marching out, and they do have the Bright Wizard leading the charge here, and also the second Warrior Priest. Well, I guess he's the only traditional Warrior Priest other than Lex over there. But he's doing pretty good. He's getting ready to push the line, but the Doom Divers have switched their focus, so very well played on my opponent's part. He is targeting my greatswords, and he's already taken out 9 models here, so a very, very effective use of those. He did some pretty decent damage over here, but you can see the battle is certainly developing in my favor over here, as these Knights of the Blazing Sun and Sterling's Revenge are just tearing through these Black Orcs here, and you can see that Black Orcs as well as the Orc Biggins have been routed off. So the Flagellants are engaging with the Savage Orcs, so a very shirtless matchup here. Definitely not fans of clothing, either of these guys, but I do have the advantage of the Warrior Priest, who's going to use the damage resistance as well as the Lore of Fire buffs with the Flaming Sword of Ruin. So this is actually a pretty cool matchup. Very similar units in terms of ideology, I suppose. But my guys got their maces versus giant axes. I do supplement my line with the greatswords because his Black Orcs, he both sent out to deal with some troops over there. But unfortunately, this engagement over here went fairly poorly for my opponent. He does have some troops, but I was able to outmaneuver. And now that these guys have got in, the floodgates are definitely open. And you can see those goblins flying into cameras, and they're just going to ride straight through, right into the backs of these Savage Orcs. The Savage Orcs themselves don't have the highest leadership, guys. I can't really find a fresh unit to give you an example, but they're all in the negatives right now. He did use Ere We Go, but unfortunately the timing of that with the cav charge, most of those units just routed off. So the only group to really get the benefit of that was these guys. And you do see the Orc Shaman just lurking around here and using those really cost-effective buffs. So he does get the Black Orcs around here, and he's able to surround my Empire Captain, which was definitely a rough situation for me, but with that Potion of Toughness, I just used it. You guys see he's going to last an eternity against those guys. He does have some Orc Biggins and auxiliary troops coming over, but the Sterling's Revenge, they were actually pretty useful against this particular build my opponent was using. I just kind of kept them in the wings and was using them to harass, like routing units, and it looks like they're trying to decide if they want to fire. Sometimes the pathing's a little weird on those units, but they should take their pot shots here. You can see they're going to shoot into the backs of these units and will hopefully do some decent work. At the same time, the Flagellants are continuing to fight. He does get the Goblin Wolf Riders around the flank and is able to get a nice surround on my Bright Wizard, actually, but I think he realized that, they weren't a huge deal, and he wanted to use them to chase down the Sterling's Revenge. So definitely a tough situation for me, but at the end of the day, when these guys decide to turn and fight, they will be able to beat those goblins. So this is kind of the epicenter of the battle. You can see the Black Orcs who are gaining the benefit of the Wa. The Orc Shaman is broken at this point, unfortunately for my opponent, and he doesn't have that much left. He has Grimgor here, as well as a few Black Orcs who are shaken, and most of those Savage Orcs were really collapsed in that initial charge against the Flagellants, in conjunction with the cycle charging of the Knights of the Blazing Sun. You can also see I sent some Greatswords in the back to kind of purge some of the, he had some Black Orcs in reserve there, and I sent these guys to fight and to make sure they didn't come back. You can see Grimgor is pretty much all that's left. And also, the Sterling's Revenge, they were able to just beat down those goblins. I should have showed you guys a little more of that. It might not look pretty right now, but I did send the Bright Wizard over there to help out. And they took, some losses, but at the end of the day, they absolutely chased off those goblins and broke them. So he does have some Savage Orcs up here on the hill, as well as that Orc Shaman who came back. He uses the Gaze of Mork to do pretty good damage, but this Bright Wizard definitely got a little ambitious, and he's going to do a pretty good job fighting against Savage Orcs. Again, the Wizard characters are pretty good combatants. They don't have a lot of armor, so they will take damage from these type of units, but they do have very high weapon strength and can hit pretty hard, guys. So you can see the Sterling's Revenge coming in there, just being absolutely awesome, leaping in with their swords, and I think the Sterling's Revenge will probably win this matchup, especially with the support of the Bright Wizard here. So you can see these Savage Orcs are shaken, and the Sterling's Revenge are still quite eager for combat. In the front line, I think the only thing that's left is that Grimgor there? It must be Grimgor. He's such a cool character, but he is surrounded by a lot of these troops, many of which don't have armor piercing actually, but these great swords with the Grand Hammer of Sigmar should get through him fairly quickly, and it looks like that is all she wrote for our Greenskin opponent there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that Crusade battle. It's definitely one of my new favorite compositions, and honestly, I've played some fairly competitive games with it. It's kind of like one of those out of meta picks that people just don't expect. You know, people expect Demogryph Knights, people expect, don't expect a Flagellant front line. So again, the Greenskins will bring, these type of Savage Orcs to just cut through Spearmen and Halberdiers, but when they fight equivocally as enraged Flagellants, sometimes it's a bit of a, not off-putting, but it can catch you off guard. But his Doom Divers did pretty well. Thankfully, I was able to kind of secure that flank over there with the Knights of the Blazing Sun and do well there. But those Doom Divers, had it been a different map, could have been absolutely devastating, because if they could have started right away shooting at my Flagellants, I would have taken massive losses, and the game could have gone very, very differently. So again, there was a bit of luck in that matchup, but I did know what the map was going into it, so I knew there was a little bit of a cushion there. But again, if that had been like Chaos Waste or one of those open maps, I could have gotten crushed. So again, good game to my opponent Fade over here. It was a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you again on Ladder. And thanks again for watching, guys. More content coming soon.